Hello everyone and welcome back to Towergate. It is Towergate Day 389, Wednesday, April the 4th, 2018. It's Wednesday, and you know what happens on Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I take out the trash, and I have chicken for dinner. Today was no different. I took out the trash, and I had chicken. Quite tasty. Let's get to the news, shall we? Well, a report from the executioner, Uncle Bob Mule, and the Hillary donor posse. There's been a report that has been shared with Trump's attorneys. And that report says that Mueller is not targeting Trump as a criminal target in Russian collusion. But it says that Trump is still the subject of the investigation. It also states that Mueller is continuing to investigate Trump and is preparing a report about Trump's actions since becoming president and possible obstruction of justice. So he's working on a report that's been following Trump since he became president to show where there may be obstruction of justice, but he's not looking at Trump as a target in the criminal investigation of Trump-Russia, but only as a subject of the investigation. Well, let's get to this obstruction thing, and that would be talking about the firing of James Comey, is specifically what that would be about. Well, the thing here is that for there to be an obstruction charge, you must first have an underlying crime. What crime was Trump trying to obstruct? Well, there was never any stated underlying crime, nor was there any evidence or probable cause shown for Trump having involvement in a crime. The entire investigation was based on nothing more than a political witch hunt with no probable cause or reasonable suspicion that a crime had been committed. And the evidence by which that brought about the political witch hunt was based on the dossier created by the Rotten Reverend Clinton, disseminated through her lackeys at the State Department, and the people she was paying over there at Confusion GPS. It was then laundered through Christopher Steele back through the FBI into the DOJ so that they could use it to get FISA warrants to spy on people around Trump, which would give them Trump. And we know the GCHQ was spying on Trump for John Brennan, going back as early as 2015. So the entire thing is based on a big nothing. You can't have obstruction without there being an underlying crime. What is the underlying crime? What is the probable cause that there was even a reason to launch the investigation in the first place, other than the lies in the Hillary paid-for dossier and the FISA warrant based on lies and misleading the FISA court, which was also based on the dossier? It's a nothing's here story. There's nothing here. Again, the purpose of the Mueller witch hunt is to drag this thing out as long as he can, hoping that he can put a dark shadow over the Trump administration, which would, they hope, deliver the midterms to the Democrats so they can begin bringing about impeachment hearings and shutting down the real investigations that are happening under Grassley, Nunes, and Goodlatte. And if Mueller gets a chance to interview or interrogate Trump, he will try to trip him up in some sort of a lie. It's very easy. Mueller has interviewed thousands of people probably, or dozens and dozens of people, but he's got thousands and thousands of pages of testimony from FBI investigations and everything that's been going on, all the surveillance and all that other stuff. if he can find one statement, just one, or even a person who makes a statement, a fact, which may be incorrect, may be a lie. But if you can get anyone, if you can ask any question where Trump can give an answer that's not consistent with what someone else may have said, he can say, okay, well, I believe that person, and I believe Trump is lying. Therefore, I think he's lying to the FBI, or he's lying to my investigators, or what have you, and there you go. A setup, a trap. That's why Trump should never, ever, ever talk to Mueller in any way, shape, or form, letter, or anything else. It will be nothing more than a setup. It's what he's done to everyone else. It's his specialty, as is the specialty of his right-hand man, Mr. Weissman, and we know all about Mr. Weissman, do we not? Former Obama communications director Jen Psaki, she's a real winner. She says Trump's attack on cheating Barry, which is what Trump referred to Obama as in a recent tweet, cheating Barry. Former Obama communication director Jen Psaki says Trump's attack on cheating Barry may be racist. And she says he was, after all, he was the founder of the birther movement. No, he wasn't, Jen. It's been proven over and over and over and over again. Trump was not the founder of the birther movement. The founder of the birther movement came out of the rotten Reverend Clinton campaign. Someone within the rotten Reverend Clinton campaign started the birther movement, Jen. And the attack on Obama was warranted. Has nothing to do with race. Obama's mixed race. So which race was he attacking? He's half white and half black, as far as we know. That's what we're told. I don't know who the hell he is. Or what the hell he is. But I know it wasn't a racist attack. You know very well, Jen, what he meant by cheating Barry. He was talking about the fact that we have just learned last week from some text messages between Peter's been stroking us and Lisa Page, the lovers. We learned from them. Now it's actually two things we learned about a month and a half ago. We had the one conversation where Lisa Page said everything has to go through the White House. The White House wants to know everything. And then we get this text last week, which shows that there was clear coordination between the Obama administration and the FBI and the DOJ. Evidence of collusion, Jen, between cheating Barry and the evildoers over at the DOJ and the FBI. Your friends, Jen. The ones that you attend cocktail parties with. The ones you engage in activities with that are outside the law. Your fellow insurance brokers, Jen. That's why nobody likes you. Well, Jimmy Kimmel. What an idiot. This guy's always been an idiot. I can't believe he ever got on TV. He used to do like stupid sports predictions or something. Somehow he got on late night TV. I have no idea why. He is a talentless hack of the highest order. And he's an idiot. He's making and mocking, I should say, Melania's accent. Well, you know, she comes from Eastern Europe, and she didn't come to the States and become a citizen here until she was in her early 20s. She does speak 5 languages, Jimmy, and English is not her first language. It's not her second language. It's not even her third language. It's like her number 4 or number 5 language. She learned 3 European languages before she ever learned English. I think she speaks pretty damn good English, Jimmy. And she makes a hell of a lot more sense with English she knows than you do. She's got more class in her pinky than you have in your whole body. More intelligence than you could ever dream of having. She is a very, very nice lady. a wonderful first lady, has represented this country with dignity, honor, respect. She's doing a fine job, and I understand every word that she says. Jimmy, you pathetic weasel. If I could get my hand on you, Jimmy, right now, I'd slap you so hard your mother would be dizzy. You peanut brain. Mueller, Uncle Bob, the executioner, has responded to Manafort's attorneys. What I'm talking about is about a week ago, Manafort's attorneys submitted a brief to the court stating that the charges against him should be thrown out because Mueller went outside the scope of his investigation, the authority of his investigation. Well, today, Uncle Bob showed up with a letter. Oh, yes, that's right. A letter that he provided the court that shows Rod Rodenstein, that rat, Rod Rodenstein, gave him the authority. Presented the letter, saying, here it is. Here's the letter where Rod Rodenstein gave me the authority to look into Manafort's dealings with this Ukrainian lobbyist who was working for Viktor Yanukovych, who's associated or thought to be a friend of Putin, who's thought to have been supported by Putin. Duh! Why do you think that is? Yanukovych comes from the eastern bloc of Ukraine. The people on the eastern side of Ukraine are essentially Russians. Their families, many of their families live in Russia. Ukraine's very interesting. On the west side, they're more tied to the Western Europe, the EU and all that. The eastern Ukrainians are more Russians. Their families are Russian. Their history is Russia. They speak Russian. They have close ties to Russia. Obviously, Putin would be more supportive of Yanukovych than he would be of the chocolate man put in power by F the EU Newland and her friends in the EU who pulled off that pooch. This is all common sense. There's no secret underlying spooky underworld deep state sort of thing going on here. It's politics. Putin looking to advance his own interests. Mr. Yanukovych looking to advance his own interests, and they had a common interest. Podesta was also lobbying for the exact same individual, but we don't hear Uncle Bob going after Podesta, do we? The way that worked was they hired Manafort to lobby Republicans because he's associated with Republicans, and they hired Podesta to lobby Democrats because he's associated with Democrats. They were both working for the same client. But do you hear anything about Podesta? Do you see any charges being filed against him? No. And he was doing the exact same thing for the exact for the exact same people. You see what a charade all this is? But this letter, I don't think this letter helps Uncle Bob because it still doesn't get to the direct point that Manafort's lawyers are making. What was the reason? Where was the probable cause that Mueller or Rodenstein, or Sessions for that matter, or anyone, what was the probable cause to go digging around in Manafort's financial dealings in Ukraine? What was the probable cause to launch the investigation? That's the question. The fact that Mueller presents a letter from Rodenstein saying, oh, well, here, Rodenstein gave me legal authority to look into Manafort's financial dealings in Ukraine. Well, that doesn't really help Mueller. All that does is drag Rodenstein a little deeper into the muck. And he's already very deep into the muck. Look at him. Have you seen those beady little eyes darting around when he's being questioned in Congress? All his eyes are everywhere. They're everywhere, but looking at the guy that's asking the questions because he can't look him in the eye. His little eyeballs beady little eyes darting around, looking down at the table, looking to the left, looking to the right. His eyes are here, his head's there. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Where are we? Little beady eyes, because that's what you have. You ever seen a rodent? Beady little eyes. That's why I call him Rodent Steen. Greg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst, says that Rodenstein's letter violated the law. He says that the special counsel law requires that a specific statement of facts be stated in order to justify an investigation. He says both should resign, and he's right. There was never probable cause for any investigation into Trump, nor Manafort, or any of these other guys. It's a witch hunt. It's exactly what it looks like. You do not need to make checkers chess. It's not that hard to understand. You need probable cause to begin investigating somebody. Some reason. You can't just start investigating people out of the clear blue sky because you feel like it. Curiosity is not freaking evidence. Curiosity will not satisfy a court order, will not satisfy a subpoena or a search warrant. You need facts. You need evidence. You need probable cause or reasonable suspicion that a crime may have been committed. And then you have to put it in writing and show what those evidences are. None of this was done when Mueller went and launched his witch hunt, whether it be on Trump, Manafort, or anyone else. That's the bottom line. They're playing games with us. Fortunately, we're not stupid. Duh. My goodness. These people are starting to make me angry. I better have a drink of Sunny Delight before I go off and launch on some cuss words or something, which offends some people. I try not to do it unless I get really pissed. Oh, couldn't forget this one. Some of you have probably heard Uncle Bob Mule, the special executioner, has indicted this Dutch lawyer for making false statements. That's right. He launched the indictment on this Dutch lawyer for making a false statement. And the penalty, 30 days in jail and a $20,000 fine. Boy, that's a big fish. Let's see. This is Uncle Bob's latest catch. He gets a Dutch lawyer for making a false statement. He gets 30 days in jail and a $20,000 fine. And was his lie of any significance to anything? No. It's just he got a fact wrong, or didn't remember a fact, or didn't remember the day the fact occurred. Any little thing. That's all it takes to get indicted by Uncle Bob when you are not part of the deep state, when you're on the target list. So let's do a quick review. Uncle Bob, the special executioner, indicted and charged Papadopoulos with telling seven lies, 7 false statements to the FBI. But then his sentencing was suspended until whenever. Now, the last photo we saw of Papadopoulos about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was smiling ear to ear because he had just married his new bride, the Italian lawyer, who was also questioned by Uncle Bob the executioner. They seem to be very, very happy. He doesn't seem to be a guy who's worried about being sentenced to anything, for anything. He seems pretty happy. Doesn't seem like a guy who's got much to worry about. So what happened there? Sentencing was postponed indefinitely. Then we get Flynn. He also supposedly lied to the FBI. But now that Mueller has turned over the exculpatory evidence to the judge, he's reviewing that. And apparently it looks good for Flynn because he's back out on the stump. He's back in business and breathing fire. My guess is the lawyer has told him that either the charges Either he's going to be able to reverse his guilty plea or he's going to be pardoned. And his sentencing is also going nowhere. So what else is left? Well, we have Manafort, indicted in 2 different jurisdictions on dozens and dozens of financial crimes having nothing to do with Russian collusion. And he's fighting every damn charge. Every one of them. Pled not guilty to every bit of it and is not cooperating at all with Uncle Bob. But you get his partner, Gates, who apparently has cooperated because apparently you don't have the money to fight off Uncle Bob. So he's cooperating. We don't know what he's learning from this guy, but who cares? He's a nobody. If Gates didn't have the direct contact in the campaign for the short period of time that he and Manafort were there, Manafort was the primary guy running the show, dealing with Trump, talking to Trump, and handling everything. Gates is his partner in business, and he probably had some things for Gates to do, but Gates is a tiny, tiny fish in this overall thing, and he never probably even ever had a conversation with Trump. He says that he talked to some Russian spy who he knew was a Russian spy. Whoop-de-doo! The Russians have thousands and thousands of spies, and they talk to a lot of people. I wonder if it bothered Uncle Bob the Executioner that the Right Reverend Clinton received $148 million to the Clinton Foundation, and her hubby got $500 large from the very Russian oligarchs who benefited from the sale of Uranium One. Maybe he can look into that. The caravan is still moving toward the border. There's 2 stories out today. One is that they're going to send the National Guard to the border. Well, yeah, you can send the National Guard. That's one option you have. Hell, Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne into an American city, somewhere in like Missouri or somewhere. He deployed the 101st Airborne to an American city. Yes, that's right. That's what Ike did. But there's another story out there that Trump had a meeting with General Mattis today and asked Mattis what could be done. And I'm sure Mattis said, well, it's a national security issue. We have people coming towards the border saying that they're going to enter the country illegally. We don't know who they are, what they're bringing, what kind of diseases are coming up from Central America. We don't know if they're criminals. We don't know anything. But they're going to try to enter the country illegally. And you, as Commander-in-Chief, sir, have the ability to order the military to the border to defend the country, if that's what you need to do. And I expect that's what he will do. So I would say not only will we might see the National Guard there, I think you might see the actual U.S. military sent to the border. And what they should do is as soon as they cross the border, they should arrest them, give them military tribunals, and send them to Gitmo. And that would stop it. I understand they have plenty of vacancies there. Sarah Carter's latest bombshell is the 3rd piece of evidence that's very damning for the Obama administration and Obama himself. Sarah Carter has uncovered, this comes to her, their communications uncovered by congressional investigators, which reveal that the FBI may have improperly coordinated with the Department of Justice officials in an effort to pressure those officials to expedite a FISA warrant on a former volunteer with the Trump campaign. These are more Page and Strzok texts. We don't know the name of this Trump volunteer. It could be Carter Page, it could be Papadopoulos, or someone else. But it's now the 3rd piece of evidence, which is now showing a direct link between the Obama administration, cabinet-level people, coordinating with the FBI to launch this witch hunt, the insurance policy, the frame-up on Trump. There's no doubt in my mind that this involves the Obama administration, the FBI, the DOJ, the intel community, the State Department, and the media, and probably others. It was one gigantic cabal of the deep state trying to stop Trump. When they couldn't stop him from winning the election, they tried to take him out, and they're still trying to this very day. Very well done, Sarah Carter. And someone on one of these congressional committees is leaking this stuff to her, by the way. They want it out. They want this stuff getting out. So it probably came out of Nunes or his committee, or maybe Grassley's committee. I'm not sure who her contacts are, but this is the third time that she's dropped something like this, and it's no accident. It's certainly, they want this stuff out there to compete with the narrative, the false narrative. Calls for a deeper investigation and an inspector general or a special counsel to look into the rotten Reverend Clinton, and her dealings with the dossier are getting louder and louder. Now, this is not something new. This is actually something we talked about 3-4 months ago, when we learned that the rotten Reverend Clinton, as in her contract with Confusion GPS, we understood this 3 or 4 months ago, that it was the rotten Reverend Clinton who had contractual control over how the dossier would be disseminated. In other words, it was up to the rotten Reverend Clinton, and I assume her man Mark Elias from Perkins and Coy, about how that dossier could be disseminated. They owned it. She paid for it. And he contracted it. They were the final decision makers. Spreading this dossier all over the place through the State Department, spreading it to media organizations, and all these things really could not have happened without the approval of Mr. Elias representing the rotten Reverend Clinton. We learned this 3 or 4 months ago. Hillary Clinton had contractual control over the dissemination of the dossier. Period. And yes, that does warrant enough evidence. It's extraordinary, Jeff Sessions, that's what I would consider extraordinary, that the presidential candidate from the Democratic Party had contractual control over the dossier, which was disseminated illegally by BuzzFeed and throughout the media complex. It was also distributed to the FBI via one of your friends, Mr. Weiner, who served under you in the State Department, Reverend. Your hands are all over this. Your fingerprints are all over this dirty dossier, Reverend. And there does need to be a special counsel, because you, Reverend, controlled the dissemination of that dossier. Liberals now claim that Russians are helping Laura Ingraham. That's why I say you cannot talk to these people, negotiate with these people, have discussions with these people. You must defeat them. Liberals, they're destroying the country. You give them a chance and they'll do it. You can't just sit back and pretend that they'll go away. They won't. I promise you that. Been watching them for years. They never go away. You got to beat them down. Beat them up and take them out. So, liberals, you think that the Russians are helping Laura Ingraham. The Russians probably don't even know who Laura Ingraham is. And they don't care. But I got 2 words for you, liberals. Uranium-1. Uranium-1. Why don't you Google, liberals, Uranium-1 and Russia? Russia, Uranium-1. Uranium-1, Russia. Google it. I think you'll find some interesting things. Maybe you can focus on that. Finally, a new poll today is out from Monmouth University. They polled 800 respondents of registered voters. Not as good as likely voters, but still registered voters. And what they found is that 77% of people polled believe that the mainstream media is pushing fake news. That's what I said. 77% of people believe that the mainstream media is pushing fake news. That's a very high number. They did this exact same poll just 1 year ago. That number 1 year ago was 63%. That's a 14% increase in just 1 year. That's a big number. When 77% of people believe that the media, the mainstream media, is pushing fake news, that is a devastatingly high number. And it's certainly not good. And it explains the numbers when you look at it. Some of these programs on MSNBC and CNN, the two primary habitual offenders, they don't even get hardly over 1 million views on their most popular show. They don't even come in the top 20 of most viewed shows. That's how bad it is. I mean, you have Yogi Bear reruns beating CNN. MSNBC is not much better because they push fake news. 77% is a big number. You know, what happens is that they're a very tiny group, really, when you think about it. A very, very tiny group of people, but they have the New York Times, they have the Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, and CNN and MSNBC. They have 90% of the media. So it looks like they have this really loud voice and they represent millions and millions of people. But we know that all they represent is a bunch of whack jobs in a couple of the most liberal, most blue states that there is on the coasts. But these are the same people that told us Trump had zero chance of winning, that Hillary is going to win it in a landslide. I remember the night of the election, even when the first states started coming in, they were still saying, Trump has no chance. Hillary could win 50 states. It could be the biggest landslide in history. Nobody would vote for an orange orangutan who likes to grab women by the pussy. Oh, no. No one will vote for that guy, will they? No one cares what he grabs and where he grabs it. Who cares? But the truth of the matter is that these people, they are a tiny, tiny group of people, and they don't report news based on, I mean, how do they know what 3/4 of the country thinks? They never go. Do you think those people ever get off their lily white asses in New York and Los Angeles or Washington and take a drive through Ohio or Tennessee or Georgia or South Carolina or Louisiana or Idaho or Kansas or Missouri or, God forbid, Utah? Hell no. Those people live in a bubble in their own little world. They're in an echo chamber. They proved in the election that they do not know what they're talking about. Trump won 30 states. Hillary won 20. She got what? 204 electoral votes. He got 305, 306, 307, something like that. It wasn't that close. It was about the same margin of victory that Obama had over Romney when they told us it was an easy victory. These people are just full of hot air, is what it boils down to. And the only thing that they can exist on is propaganda. They have to believe that they keep coming out day after day after day and preaching fake news, that somehow people are going to suddenly start believing it. But this poll, 77%, up 14% from last year, tells us it's not working. It's going the other way. More and more people are believing that they are pushing fake news. Fewer and fewer people are believing them. And the ratings continue to fall. And they don't care if they lose money. They're owned by huge parent corporations who make tons of money doing other things. They don't care. The Times doesn't care if they lose money. Slim doesn't care. Mr. Zuckerman doesn't care. CNN doesn't care. MSNBC doesn't care. They don't care if they lose money. They got a mission. And it's to lie and spread false, fake news. It's not working, and this number tells us that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more Towergate. Thank you for tuning in. You guys be safe. Have a good night. Bye.